Did you know that you can use orchid clips on other plants? I like to use them to help my plants climb. I have this stunning Philodendron Brazil creeping up my staircase. As there's no banister, I've had to get a little creative with how I secure my plant. I've used a few small nails and a few orchid clips. They're the same color as my plant, so are nice and subtle. It's also super easy to add and remove. Helping your plants climb will also give you bigger foliage. Let's add some plant clips to my Monstera. Whilst the roots of your plant may grow into a Coco Coir pole or moss pole and stay put, if you're using a trellis, you're going to need some added support. I loop these small clips both around the stem and the trellis. This will keep your plant in place and encourage a larger foliage. I like these ones because they are pretty subtle and the same color as my plant. I've used 3 for this plant and given it the shake test, and she's not going anywhere. They're definitely a good accessory to have. Let's add a Coco Coir pole to my Philodendron White Princess so she doesn't fall right out of the planter. I like using these poles for support as they are bendy, versatile, and a neutral color. I use twine to attach my plant to the pole and make a loose bow. Whilst the roots can grow into the pole, this isn't the goal here. I just want a little bit of support to help those leaves grow bigger. Once this Philodendron reaches the top of the pole, I'm going to chop and prop her. As well as wrapping plants around your pole, you can also use it to stake top-heavy plants. This Monstera was not staying upright on her own anymore. Like most plant parents, I am putting off repotting, so I've opted to add a pole in the meantime. Again, I'm using one of the bendy poles. Although I'm going to use it more straight this time, I do like that it is thinner than some other Coco Coir poles and is more subtle in the plant. As I did with the Philodendron, I'm going to push the pole into the soil and then secure the plant to the pole using string. I find this method provides plenty of support for a plant of this size, and I also like to mist this one down as well. Monsteras are a tropical plant, so do love the extra moisture. I did end up bending this top bit back down so it doesn't stick out the top of my plant. I think it looks so cute and subtle and has helped to stabilize my plant. Next, let's look at styling some different trellis options. First up, I've got this cute acrylic honeycomb style one, which I'm popping into my Philodendron Pink Princess. Adding supports like this one to your plant helps your leaves grow bigger. This is because your plant isn't using its energy to grow upwards. Instead, it can focus on growing big, beautiful leaves. As well as propping up leaves, I also use trellises for any plants that I've just repotted. They are a really great way to stabilize any plants that might be moving a bit still. Or, like with the Monstera, they can be a great way to prop up some top-heavy plants. This Palea was leaning after a repot as well, so adding this trellis really helped to support her. Most of the time you can barely even see the trellises once they're in the plant, but that doesn't stop me from buying cute ones. You can also opt for a trellis if you've got a long trailing plant like this. This Monstera Siltepecana was really just getting too long, and although I'm usually one for the chop, I decided to style this one a little differently. I opted for another circle trellis and wrapped the vines around the circle. I ended up with this wreath looking display, and I think it looks so cute and fairly unique. This is definitely a great way to tame a plant which is growing out of control, especially for those of you a bit nervous for a chop and prop. We're not going through any moss poles today because I don't really like using them. Whilst they do work well, I don't think they look very good. Remember that you can style your plants however you like. You're the one who's going to be looking at them. To me, having something that is cute and functional is best. If your water propagations are turning the water green, it is time to switch to amber glass. Amber glass keeps out the UV rays and also heat, which keeps your water cleaner for longer. As the water stays cooler, your cutting may grow slower, but as you can see from this one cutting, it is definitely not an issue. Clear glass heats up faster, which does create a great growing environment, but it's a growing environment for your cutting and for algae. I'm slowly building up my collection of amber jars and vessels. I found some very cute vintage bottles at thrift stores, but you can also get them online like the glass mushrooms. If your water propagation has failed and you can't figure out why, stick around for this video. There's 2 common reasons why, and the first is the base of your cutting is touching the bottom of your vessel. You want the bottom of your cutting to be suspended in the water so that there is plenty of room for the roots to grow. The second reason is that your propagation may have fallen into your vessel and the leaves and stalk are getting wet. This can lead to both the stem and the leaves rotting. To fix this issue, you want to choose a vessel that is longer than your cutting is so there's plenty of room for the roots to grow, but also not so wide that the plant falls into it. Opting for one with a cork lid with a hole with it is a safe bet. This Palais has outgrown her pot, so let's give her an upgrade. First up, I'm going to gently remove her from her home and remove this old soil. The new pot I've got doesn't have drainage holes, so I'm going to put her in a nursery pot first. A little hack is to put a mesh round in the bottom so your soil doesn't fall straight out the bottom. I'm adding some fresh soil and giving her a good water, making sure I don't get the leaves wet. And then she's going into a fancy new black and gold planter and back on my plant shelf. If you're a fan of cacti like the euphorbia, please get some proper gardening gloves. I have tried all the repotting hacks, including the towel method, and it always ends poorly. Having thick gloves will save your fingers and make the repotting process that much easier. You can really just grab the cactus with thick gloves, which helps to stabilize it, as well as proper thick gloves. Make sure that you have a well-draining pot. This will save your hands and your cactus. Let's use some spider plant babies to make new hanging plants. Spider plants are one of the few plants which I think propagate just as well in soil as they do in hydro. This is because the pups come with roots ready-made. Making new plants is super easy. All you need to do is snip off the little spiderettes. You don't need to let them dry out like you do for some propagations, and you can push them straight into your soil. You can push a bunch together to make a fuller plant straight away, and you want to keep these fairly hydrated so they can form their new roots. These make such great hanging plants because they grow really long, and they also make these little spider babies which you can leave on or take off. Here in Australia, I keep my spider plants outside year round, but if your climate doesn't suit this, you can keep them inside as well. I love these plants because they are low maintenance, fast growing, and they are also great at purifying the air, as well as providing little babies to prop. They also flower. Here's one of my favorites in my collection. She's a beauty. Let's propagate a snake plant pup. This more compact snake plant is a bird's nest snake plant. She's a bit thick and we love her for it. This snake plant became a little root bound, and although I love the look of the snake plants all together, I'm going to separate them out. As they were so compact, there wasn't enough airflow between the plants, resulting in some of the leaves beginning to rot. This rot can easily spread to the rest of the plant, so it's best to break them up now. During this process, I found a little pup which I've decided to water propagate. We'll come back to the pup shortly. The fantastic cracking you can hear is the rhizomes breaking apart. And yes, there is an ASMR version of this if you prefer that one. Rhizomes are a thick root system. Turmeric and ginger are great examples of rhizomes if you don't know what they look like. They form the shallow but thick root system that supports snake plants. They grow outward and slightly down, allowing the plant to access moisture and nutrients efficiently. This is also where new shoots and pups will grow from. You can propagate snake plants via leaf cuttings, but in my experience, they can take months to root, whereas pups take just a few weeks. Now my pup is separated, I'm going to let it callus slightly overnight. This will help to prevent rot. Once she has her dry protective layer, I'm just going to put her in a vessel. You can propagate snake plants straight into soil, but I prefer to watch the roots grow. So let's do just that. You can see there is bright white roots growing from the base of my pup. I have kept her in a warm, sunny spot with indirect sunlight. For my water propagations, I top up the water as needed. I completely change the water whenever I change the vessel. I move to bigger vessels as my root system grows. If you tend to let the roots grow for longer like I do, you want to be careful that the root system does not outgrow the opening of the vessel. Sadly, if you knock off propagation roots, new ones won't always grow in their place. Best to give your plant plenty of room to grow. This snake plant has been living in water for 4 months, and I'm now going to transfer her to soil. When transferring a water propagation to soil, you want to make sure the roots are at least 2 inches long. Waiting until you have first and secondary roots will also help your plant stabilize in the soil. I am using a succulent potting mix here, but you can also make your own. You want to make sure it's well draining, so add in some sand and pumice. I'm also using a terracotta pot because these are great for succulents and cacti. They absorb extra water away from the soil, are a porous material so airflow can also get into the roots. I also really love the aesthetic appeal of terracotta. The gorgeous earthy orange really complements the green of this snake plant. Over time, terracotta also develops a natural patina. There is a reason why these pots are a timeless classic. As for this snake plant pup, I'm going to pop it in a sunnier spot now that it is planted. I water my cacti and succulents monthly, making sure that the soil dries out completely in between. Of course, I've transferred the mother plant into terracotta now too. We love a matching moment. Watering globes are so handy to have if you are a frequent traveler or a little bit forgetful. Here are a few of my favorites and how I use them. For the wine bottle hack, I've got a terracotta spike that it sits into. This is great for bigger plants and lasts for a few weeks. For my smaller, more delicate plants, I like to use these glass mushroom globes. There is a bit of a knack to them. You have to push them into the soil quickly and straight up and down. You do it quickly so that a little bit of soil clogs the opening to stop water gushing out. You also don't want them at an angle because the water will also come running out quickly. I opt for plastic outside both to stop any fire issues and also so if it breaks, I don't have to worry about my sweet old hound's little feet. These really are so handy. The string method is a great way to keep houseplants happy whilst you're traveling. It can also be used year-round for plants that love moisture. Let's get into it. You can buy pots with a string already, or you can just easily make your own. Going to for this planter, which has about 5 different plants in there, but they all have a higher water need. Let's get to it. Grab some thick string or some twine and cut off a length twice as long as your planter. Nursery pot always. I'm now going to push the string through the soil on the side and it'll come out one of the holes at the bottom. I use this method for my prayer plants year round because they like consistently moist soil. Just pushing the string down to the bottom. This is one of my favorite ways to make a self-watering system for indoor houseplants. It is fairly easy and also cheap and accessible. This would obviously be a lot easier before you put a plant in your planter, but you can stick it through as well. Get my little probe out. Now obviously a nursery pot and a decorative pot with a hole always. String through there as well. If you don't have a planter with a dedicated section at the bottom, you can always use a plant saucer or a bowl. A tray or a jar nearby works fine too. So the string sits in the water and absorbs up and it gets into the soil. You can use this year-round for high water plants and also as a hack for when you're traveling and need to keep your plants hydrated. There you go, the string method. I use the string method year-round for my prayer plants, including my Tenanthe bell marks. You can see this one has a fatter string out the bottom and it's dripping with water. This is what you want for a water-loving houseplant. As well as the Tenanthe, I also use it for my Maranta and prayer plants, including the Calathea. I have found this method stops my leaves from getting brown tips. You can also use this whilst traveling for outdoor plants that like a lot of water, including your herbs and your veggie garden. I am team misting houseplants. Where I live gets to over 40 degrees Celsius in summer, and let me tell you, both me and my plants need a cool down. Misting can help cool your plant and increases humidity, even if only for a moment. It helps to deter some common pests like spider mites who do not like a wet environment. Misting is also a really good opportunity to get up and close and personal with your plants to make sure there's no pests or issues. And whilst not all plants like to be misted, like the begonia or peperomia or any plants with velvety leaves, plenty of them love a mist and I really love doing it, which is important as well. I am a big fan of using neem oil on my houseplants. It's organic, made with neem seed and a vegetable-based agent. For my houseplants, I use it for natural leaf shine as it keeps the foliage lush and dust-free. It's also a really great product to use to help deter common houseplant pests. You can dilute it and spray it directly on your plant's leaves, or you can add it to water and use it as a drench and pour it over your soil. Make sure to wipe it off after you have sprayed and keep your houseplants away from direct sunlight for a few days afterwards.